So before we jump into Solaris and look development, lighting and rendering, I wanted to actually quickly go over how I added details to the skeleton, because now the skull itself looks very clean, and I definitely wanted to add some kind of creepy blood stains on it and some extra details that would make it stand out a little bit more. So nothing fancy. We are going to be using a lot of the techniques that we already used. So once you laid out your skeleton parts, next we are going to triangulate the skeleton. So I want to see the... Yeah, so in order to see the topology, we need to unpack this. Let's unpack. There we go. Okay, so now you would see that we have this kind of topology. And I want to convert everything to triangles and add some more subdivisions. So I'm going to do triangulate. Triangulate, okay. So let's add this node. Okay, and then after this, I'm going to do subdivide. We're going to subdivide it into more polygons. And with the subdivide, again, I want to use the open subdiv loop, and I will subdivide it with 2 divisions. Okay, something more like this. And then we can do attribute promote. So we should have UVs on this skeleton, and we have to make sure that the UVs are on points, because we're basically going to add same UV based noise distortion, and then we're going to calculate the curvature and add those extra details. So let's do attribute promote. So attribute promote, we want to promote vertex to point, and the UVs on vertices will get onto points now. And then after this, we will add a mountain. Okay, so mountain, obviously it will distort everything way too much. So we are going to change the location attribute from position to UV. And then we are going to make the noise much smaller, 0.01. Change the element size to 0.025. And that should be good. Okay, so now we can see we got some cool details. We roughened up the skeleton. And then we're just going to do measure curvature, labs measure curvature. And with our trusty convexity and concavity, I'm going to get some cool details. I'm going to use grayscale, convexity set to 100, and you can already see we get something cool. And then we can set the blur amount to 35. So you can do something like this. You can add white and like black and white details, but I actually decided to add blood instead. So we can add a color node. And we can basically color based on ramp from attribute. We can set it to be convexity. And once again, we can set the overall bone color to darker gray, and you can add details this way. Or you can even do something more like that. And we can reduce the range to make the details a bit sharper. And then if you don't want them to be so blurred, you can reduce the blur amount to something like 25, for example. We'll make it sharper, or 15. Yeah, to make the details a bit sharper. And then if you want less coverage, you can reduce the curvature multiplier. So it will be more like that. All right, and again, if you want to have more like a blood-like colors, you can use the colors that I have. So on this end, it was 0.073, 0.039, and the last one was set to 0.039. And then we have one more in there, so this one would be positioned at 0.89, and then the colors would be 0.3 in the red, 0.075 in the green, 0.075 in here. So we have something more like blood on top of that. Okay, and then the actual the skull, I made it a little bit more yellowish, so 0.9 and 0.797. Okay, so we got something more like that. So now the skeleton is pretty much ready. The other thing you can do, you can darken up the eye sockets and the nose. So you can do mask by ambient occlusion. You can add this mask. The mask is going to work by default. You can just preview it here if you want. So it will actually do this, but if we remap it, actually I think we can keep it exactly the same. And then if we do color, so if I do the color, attribute adjust color, actually attribute adjust color, we will set this one to multiply the color onto the remap attribute, and it's gonna be black grayscale, actually. Yeah, so grayscale based on the mask, and then you can adjust it as needed, like this, for example. Okay, so that's completely up to you if you want to do this. And our skeleton is now ready for Solaris. So we are going to create a network box here. Actually, we can just select the nodes. Click here. Skull, bones, and this will be out. So null out skull bones. All right, so now everything is complete. If I go to camera, we go to frame 73. This will be our starting point for the shot. So you can see that we have a pretty nice scene, and everything else that you basically see in this render, it's all compositing and rendering effects. Okay, and this is something that we will look at in the next session.